Hello and welcome to this week's painting video. This week we're going to work with Turner again, of course, and start to understand the physicality of his mark making, to get to grips with how he's using colour, like we discussed in the last video. Those passages of warms and cools overlaying one with the other. But how he then applied the paint with such vigorousness at times, gentleness at other times, depending on the mood or the narrative that he wanted to tell. This is where those exercises that we've done in those watercolour videos, if you've watched those, with the dots, the dabs, the drags, the rolls of the brush, become really important. And is to, particularly if you're interested in working with the oils and the acrylics, is to be thinking about those type of marks, doing those with your different medium other than watercolour, so doing them in oil, and the effects that you can get with those. What I want you to do this week in terms of the exercise is to be looking at a Turner, find a Turner. So I've encouraged you to look on the Tate website and start to soak up a little bit of the mood of Turner. And I want you to either work in oil or acrylic or watercolour, or you can work in both. But I want you to do a interpretation of a Turner. So if you're going to work in oil, I want you to find a watercolour to work from, or if you're going to work in watercolour, find an oil to work from. This will stop you from hopefully copying too much. I'm not wanting you to come out with an exact copy of the painting. It's not the purpose of the exercise. We're looking at how he's applying the paint and moving the brush around. To get you going, rather than going straight into paint, I would encourage you maybe to look at some Turners, like this one here, which is Snowstorm, steamboat off a harbour's mouth, making signals in shallow water and going by the lead. The author was in this storm on the night the Ariel left Harwich. Exhibited in 1842. Probably one of Turner's most famous paintings. But here you can see in this photograph how just with a drawing, I've started to look at how Turner's physicality in how he's applying the paint. There's a gestural element to the way he's applying those marks. And can you see then here in my drawing how my marks have gone outside of the rectangle? Almost you can imagine Turner as he's painting that painting of his brush fling off the edge of the canvas. You can also then do that exercise in maybe watercolour or ink or something like that, that you can see here, and that you're feeling, pushing that brush down, tickling that brush across the surface. Whatever you feel that painting is doing, or the way that he's approaching and painting with the paint. Don't forget the exercises that we did last week. So you'll see in the video, I'm going to do a demonstration of a watercolour looking at an oil first, but then I'll show you at the end some examples of other or beginnings that I did. And particularly if you're going to work in watercolour, this exercise is a great one of doing this more than once. But of course you could be doing some of those quick beginnings even just on oil sketch paper in oil, just to get you into this flinging and that physical moving of the brush around. main thing about these exercises is that you enjoy them. If you don't enjoy them, they're not going to have any emotional content. There's not going to be any joy in what you do here. So let yourself go with this. Get your brush moving. There's no right or wrong. Make sure as you're doing them is that you're observing the direction and the vigorousness or the softness of the marks that Turner is making in the originals that you're looking at. And don't be afraid to overemphasize or change a part of the original Turner. We're not after an absolute replication of what we're looking at. We're using Turner as a jumping off point to explore, skipping and dancing our brushes across the surface. After the watercolour time lapse, I will have shown you some other beginnings, and that's the beautiful thing with working in watercolour for this technique is, I suppose, is the speed, and that would also be the case for acrylic as well in terms of the speeding up. So you can be trying different ways of beginning. Also to notice that difference, and there was the one there that you'll see that I've done on actual watercolour paper rather than here in just the sketchbook, and the difference of the effects that you can get. Probably the good thing about the cartridge paper is its limitations. It forces you really to work with the brush and be making these beautiful mark makings, whereas on watercolour paper we are tempted to do those beautiful washed and soft edges. So as always, good luck. If you have any other questions or concerns, or need to ask me anything else, just shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to respond or show me what you've done if you think you're not on the right track. But like I said, the most important thing is just to let go and enjoy the process.